Start today. Start going through and finding your moments of joy and give that experience to yourself once a day. It starts with a minute.
To the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast, the ultimate destination for accredited investors and entrepreneurs seeking alternative wealth building strategies. Discover how to fast track your journey to wealth and time freedom by thinking outside the box. If you're ready to join the ranks of the Contrarian Capitalists and learn the most effective ways to reach your financial goals faster, you're in the right place. Let's get started with today's episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Contrarian Capitalist Podcast. I am your host and your favorite silverback, Sylvania Harrod. And on today's episode, I'm going to take you guys through a little journey that I refer to as the second mountain. This is where you begin to transition from that journey of ego-driven to meaning-driven. So over the span of the last 6 weeks, I've had the opportunity to have somebody close to me transition. Somebody that cared for me very deeply, was like a mother to me in many different ways, was always so excited and so caring and going through. And so I got to experience a few days with her prior to that moment of transition. And now that I've had a few weeks to reflect, I've had this unique experience of just different, I want to call it more of like a different awarenesses. So what I've began to realize is that money is a tool, and this whole desire that we have around chasing after that tool is cool, because if you think about it, like most of the common language of success is determined based upon somebody's level of affluence. And so we measure people like they're so successful because of the things they acquire. And all of these things are great, but I just want to give you guys a breakdown. There is two different structures in life. One of the structures are ego-driven, and human beings for thousands of years have cared about the ego and what is more referred to as status. So status-based items are things that you choose to go after. And it was because for survival for many years, status is how you stayed alive. You can look in different countries and they have the caste systems, but status here for most was about having, if you had a farm, that was a particular place of status. If you had money or you had a car at certain points, that was status. We look at them today and status-based systems are actually zero-sum games, y'all. I'm here to tell you that. They're a losing proposition because nothing outside of you is going to make you feel better than how you feel internally. The problem is that we're exposed at a greater rate than ever in the history of man when it comes to status games. We have things like, follows, subscribers, information at us all the time, where most of social media is really a status-based game. And as I've always shared with you, you have to be at a place where you are above the fold. Because if you do not realize the rules to the game, I'm telling you, you're playing a losing game. Because what's going to happen is you're going to end up in a place where you're like, I acquire all of these items. I acquire all of these things, but damn, why does it feel so empty? You hear athletes talk about it all the time. Like, man, I've waited my whole life to win a championship. And that day they're going to feel like they're on top of the world. And that experience is great. But then ask them roughly a month later. And they're like, my favorite championship is my next championship. Because it's external. So it's something that they do not have the capabilities to actually sustain you. So as I was reading this one book called The Second Mountain, he began talking about this definition that I really, really came to like of the difference between happiness and joy. And so in the space of happiness is like having a good meal, right? Gotta love it when your dog's just bursting. Happiness is like your dog comes in and sees you, wags your tail, and wants to go through things. Joy, on the other end, joy can sustain. Joy is an experience. And I don't know how to explain it to y'all, but what I began to realize is the environment around you is way more critical than the things you're doing. because time and time again, when you're going down this journey, as your mind begins expanding, you're going to see all of the limitations that happen for people. And it's normally through language. And because most of society has trained us around status games, it's around ego. So we care about like what's our salaries determine like importance of people. This person makes $1 million a year. This person makes $50,000 a year. All that, like, what the hell does that mean? Does that mean that person's more important than you? Does that mean that that person is way smarter than you? Because I'm here to tell you that it's not the case. That just means that they just have a different risk profile than you. Doesn't mean smarter, gooder, better, bad, any of that kind of crap. It's all just nonsense. A billionaire is way smarter than the person who makes $50,000 a year. No. They just understood the science of the game. That's really all it is. Because the science of achievement is a repeatable process. That's why it's called science. But the art of fulfillment is something that cannot be replicated. It's something that has this amount of gold associated with it, which I relate towards joy. So joy is an experience where you lose yourself. So take a second, y'all. Think about it. When was a moment where you were doing something and time and space seemed to not exist? Was it a first date? Was it a moment where you were on vacation and you were watching your kids having fun? Was it watching your Eagles win the Super Bowl this year? Yeah, that was for me. You know, like, and you just keep reflecting back to those moments of watching it happen and going through. And that moment is when you were enveloped in joy. And so that thing happens to us. But for the most part, we're not sensitive enough to recognize it when those moments occur. This is why I suggest to anybody, if you want to figure out like the thing you're meant to do, I would say it's very simple. Take 30 days and every time you find a moment of like that joy, write it down. It could be something as simple as like you're scrolling and you're laughing and you're watching a movie and you're going through and you're like, man, space-time doesn't exist. Like I'm enveloped in this moment. I'm having a conversation with a friend and I realize I don't want the conversation to end. I meet a new person and we're just vibing in a way. Why? Because everything is based upon resonance. And the more times you spend in that environment, I will tell you your physicality of your body will change. You don't believe me? There are people that subscribe to the belief that drinking soda every day is awful for you and it's not going to, like, it's horrible for your body to do those things. And then there's Warren Buffett, who's 94 years old and he's still kicking. He's still going. He loves his Diet Coke every day. He loves his McDonald's. That's just because that's what it said is supposed to happen. Not there. Look at it in like Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan exercised and did things his entire life. And Ozzy Osbourne didn't. And Osbourne lived 5 years longer than him. So the thing that you look at is that we can look at all kinds of different data points and argue back and forth. But the reality is I would much rather live 50 years full of joy than 99 full of ego. Because the experience is completely different. Like riding on a plane. One person's passed out. The other one's anxious. It's not the plane's fault. It's not the air's fault. It's not even the pilot's fault. It's just the person's personal experience through there. And so when you look at those things and you look at that, look at significance and meaning is what we really want. That's why, like, meaning is who are you becoming? That's why we're human beings, not human doings. It's who are we becoming? Like, what are the things we get to express? So constantly I get asked from people, they're like, how do I start making money doing the thing that I'm passionate about? And so my first thing is always keep, if you got cash flow coming in, always keep cash flow until you get to a point where you can, like, there's no defined formula. Everybody's different. Depends on your risk profile. But if I had to give you a unit of measurement, I would just say until you're at a place where you're making 25% of your current income, spending 25% of the time of what you're doing. So if your passion project you're spending 10 hours doing a week, you're making 25% of your money, cool. It may be a time where you can transition to the thing, because I will tell you the experience doesn't change. So hours working more, risk higher. But I will tell you that joy factor is greater. I can work on things for 12 hours where I can barely work for things for 3 hours, because joy is a much more powerful fuel source than like despair or frustration or hopelessness. It's totally different. That experience and that joy can continue you, especially when you're spending most of your time in the thing you love to do. So I think about this because, like, I have a good friend of mine. She made the choice a little over a year ago to leave her workplace. And so while financially, if we are measured it on paper, it's not the same. She spends time around musicians most of her week. You know what she loves? She's a creative. She loves being around other people that are expressing their creativity. And she gets to share that moment with them through the other side of a lens. That's her job, is to capture someone's art form, and so that they can create a memory and share it with the world. You may call him a photographer, but I like my definition a little bit better because it has more meaning. That's what she gets to do. She gets to capture those experiences. And guess what happened? Physiologically, her health changed. Is it all like magical rainbows? No, but there's been a drastic reduction, and her level of experience and feeling and relationships are greater due to the fact she's spending more time in joy. So when Amy began ready to transition, I experienced that joy around her. Just the look in her eyes of seeing that so many people cared about her and that we were there next to her to watch the shows that brought her joy. And so that moment of transition, what it really told me is that I don't know how finite time is. I lost another friend in that same span of time. And I will tell you, that guy was so unapologetically himself. He gave others around him permission to be a contrarian. All of that was so fascinating to be able to witness. And you look out and you see the lives they touched, the moments that came through, because I don't believe we're meant to be here alone, y'all. And while I continue to climb up my second mountain, I want to bring others with me. And that's why I'm recording this today, so that you can understand that start today. Start going through and finding your moments of joy, and give that experience to yourself once a day. It starts with a minute. I'll tell you a little secret. I started this 6-7 years ago. Yeah. I started posting memes. Why? Because this was a reminder for me to laugh. A moment where I didn't feel like laughing. But I just realized that, like, everything happens for me, not to me. So if a certain situation occurs, for me. Certain things happen for me. Because that is the road I chose to go down. And that's what gives my life meaning, is to be able to take these informations of learning and take the licks to the face so that I can come back to you and share that with you. So find those moments daily. Find those things of joy. And then what you can realize is that it's a spectrum. The spectrum can continue. And even if it feels like there's not a lot there, you'd be amazed at how much being in that space of joy is further down that road of the art of fulfillment. The real takeaway I want you to have for this is just be joyful, because it changes your life. It changes the relationships. It changes your body, how you physically feel and show up. And that is the piece of wisdom I want to give to you. So stay hungry, stay humble, and stay grateful, my friends. Cheers.